You've committed to the carnivore diet, and you're seeing amazing results at home with your breakfast and dinner. But then, Monday morning rolls around, and you're staring at your empty lunchbox, wondering how on earth you're supposed to pack a work lunch when you can only eat meat. You watch your coworkers pull out their convenient sandwiches and pasta salads, while you're trying to figure out if you can just microwave a plain steak in the office break room without getting weird looks from everyone. The struggle is real, and today I'm going to solve this problem for you with 7 carnivore lunch ideas that are actually practical for work, taste incredible, and will keep you satisfied all afternoon without breaking your carnivore commitment. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. James Richardson, a nutritionist who helps people balance their blood sugar, improve their metabolic health, and understand their bodies on a deeper level. If you've been following along, you might have seen my recent video about starting the carnivore diet and what happens in your first 30 days. Today we're getting super practical because I know that one of the biggest reasons people fall off the carnivore diet isn't because they don't believe in it or don't like the results. It's because they hit a wall when it comes to meal prep and convenience, especially for work lunches. You can only eat so many plain hamburger patties before you start dreaming about your old turkey sandwich, right? The biggest misconception I see with carnivore diet lunches is that people think they need to recreate traditional lunch foods or make everything complicated with fancy recipes and hard-to-find ingredients. They see these elaborate carnivore creations on social media with 17 different steps and specialty items, and they think that's what they need to do to stay on track. And then they try to pull that off on a Sunday night when they're already exhausted. They get overwhelmed, and they just give up and decide to wing it during the week. But winging it on carnivore, when you're surrounded by bagels and pizza in the office, is a recipe for disaster. You need simple, delicious, packable meals that you can prep in bulk and grab on your way out the door without thinking twice. Here's what most people don't understand about carnivore lunches. The simplicity is actually your advantage, not your limitation. When you're eating a standard diet, you need variety from different food groups to get adequate nutrition. You need vegetables for fiber and micronutrients, grains for energy, fruits for vitamins, and on and on. But on carnivore, you're getting complete nutrition from animal products, which means you don't need that same level of variety to feel satisfied or stay healthy. A well-prepared piece of meat with some quality fat is a complete meal. Your taste buds might want variety because you're conditioned to expect it, but your body is perfectly happy with straightforward animal foods day after day. This is liberating once you internalize it, because it means you can batch cook 1 or 2 types of protein on the weekend and eat them all week without nutritional consequences. In fact, many long-term carnivores find that eating the same foods repeatedly actually makes the diet easier to sustain, because you're not constantly making decisions or wondering if you're doing it right. You find your staple meals, you prepare them efficiently, and you free up mental energy for other things in your life. But I also know that most people, especially when they're starting out, do want some variety to keep things interesting. So I'm going to give you 7 different lunch options that cover a range of flavors, textures, and preparation methods, so you never feel bored. Let's talk about why carnivore lunches are so effective for work performance and afternoon energy. When you eat a typical lunch with carbohydrates, whether it's bread, rice, pasta, or even fruit, your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas releases insulin to bring that blood sugar back down, and about an hour or 2 after lunch, you hit that infamous afternoon slump. Your blood sugar has dropped, your brain feels foggy, your eyelids feel heavy, and all you want to do is take a nap under your desk or mainline coffee just to stay conscious. This is so common that people think it's normal, but it's actually a sign of metabolic dysfunction driven by the foods you're eating. A carnivore lunch changes this equation completely. When you eat only animal products with their natural fat content, you get sustained energy from fat and protein without any blood sugar spike. Your body releases minimal insulin because protein has a modest effect on insulin and fat has almost none. This means your blood sugar stays stable throughout the afternoon, your energy remains consistent, and your brain functions optimally for hours after eating. Instead of fighting to stay awake at your desk, you're actually productive and focused. Instead of needing multiple coffee runs or snacks to make it to dinner, you're genuinely satisfied from your lunch. This is one of the most noticeable benefits people report when they switch to carnivore, and it's especially powerful in a work environment where your performance and productivity actually matter. The other huge advantage of carnivore lunches is satiety. Protein is the most satiating macronutrient, meaning it keeps you fuller for longer compared to the same number of calories from carbohydrates or even fat. When you eat a protein-rich carnivore lunch, you're triggering powerful satiety hormones that tell your brain you're satisfied and don't need more food. This is why you can eat a relatively small volume of food on carnivore and feel more satisfied than you did eating a huge salad or sandwich. Your body isn't measuring food by volume or even by calories. It's measuring nutrients. And when you give it dense, bioavailable nutrition from animal products, it gets the signal that its needs are met. This matters at work because you're not constantly distracted by hunger or cravings. You're not counting down the minutes until your next snack break or standing in front of the vending machine trying to convince yourself that a protein bar counts as carnivore. You eat your lunch, you feel satisfied, and you get back to work without food occupying your mental bandwidth. For a lot of people, this mental freedom is just as valuable as the physical benefits. Food becomes fuel and nourishment rather than entertainment or stress relief, and that shift can be genuinely life-changing. Now let's talk about the practical considerations for packing carnivore lunches for work. The first question everyone asks is whether you need to heat your lunch or if you can eat it cold. The honest answer is that it depends on personal preference and what you're packing. Some carnivore foods are delicious cold. Things like beef jerky, hard-boiled eggs, certain cuts of steak, salmon, and chicken can all be eaten at room temperature or cold without any issues. Other foods are definitely better warm, like brown beef, pulled pork, or ribeye steak. Most offices have a microwave available, so heating up your lunch is usually an option, but you'll want to consider whether the smell of reheating meat is going to bother your coworkers or make you self-conscious. Here's my practical recommendation. Have some lunch options in your rotation that don't require heating, so you're not dependent on microwave access or worried about smells. Things like cold steak slices, rotisserie chicken, hard-boiled eggs, or high-quality deli meats can all be eaten straight from your lunch container. But also, don't be afraid to heat up your food if you prefer it warm and you have the option. Most people are heating up leftovers in the office, and yes, some foods have stronger smells than others. But you're not doing anything wrong by eating meat. If someone has an issue with the smell of your lunch, that's their problem to manage, not yours. You're nourishing your body with species-appropriate food, and you don't need to apologize for that. Storage and food safety are also important considerations. Meat needs to be kept cold until you eat it to prevent bacterial growth. If your office has a refrigerator, great, use it. Pack your lunch in an insulated container and store it in the fridge as soon as you get to work. If you don't have fridge access, invest in a good insulated lunch bag with ice packs. The kind with gel ice packs built into the lid work really well and can keep your food cold for several hours. You want your meat to stay below 40 degrees Fahrenheit to be safe. If you're eating your lunch within 4 hours of packing it, and you've kept it well insulated, you should be fine, but don't push it longer than that without refrigeration. Meal prep is going to be your best friend for carnivore work lunches. I recommend setting aside 2 to 3 hours on the weekend to cook your proteins for the week. This doesn't mean you're spending the whole time actively cooking. You can have a chuck roast in the slow cooker, chicken thighs in the oven, and burgers on the grill, all at the same time. While those are cooking, you can portion out some deli meats, boil eggs, or prepare whatever else you want for the week. Then you spend maybe 30 minutes portioning everything into individual containers, and you're set for the entire week. 5 minutes every morning to grab a pre-packed lunch versus scrambling to figure out what to eat every single day. The time investment up front pays off massively in convenience and consistency throughout the week. Let's get into the actual lunch ideas, because that's what you're really here for. I'm going to give you 7 complete lunch options that are all carnivore compliant, practical for work, and genuinely delicious. For each one, I'll tell you what's in it, how to prepare it, and any tips for making it work in a work environment. These aren't complicated recipes with a million steps. They're straightforward preparations of quality animal products that you can realistically make and eat regularly. Lunch idea number 1 is classic burger patties with bacon and cheese. This is probably the most popular carnivore lunch because it's satisfying, flavorful, and reminds you of a cheeseburger without the bun. Here's how you make it. Get ground beef, ideally 80% lean or fattier because you want that fat for energy and satiety. Form the ground beef into patties, season them with salt, and cook them however you prefer. You can grill them, pan fry them, or even bake them in the oven. While the burgers are cooking, fry up some bacon until it's crispy. Once your burgers are done, top each one with a slice of cheese while they're still hot so the cheese melts nicely. Then add the bacon on top. For meal prep, make 5 or 6 burger patties at once. Cook all your bacon and store them together in individual containers. In the morning, grab a container and go. You can eat these cold if you want, and they're actually pretty good that way. Or you can heat them up in the microwave for about a minute. The cheese will get melty again, and the whole thing will taste like a fresh cheeseburger. Some people like to add a fried egg on top of their burger for extra richness and nutrition, and that's a great option if you want to mix it up. The combination of beef, bacon, cheese, and egg is incredibly satisfying and will keep you full for hours. The key with this lunch is using good quality ingredients. Get the best ground beef you can afford. Ideally, grass-fed if it's in your budget, because the flavor and nutrition are noticeably better. Use real bacon without added sugars or weird ingredients. Check the label, because some bacon has brown sugar or maple flavoring added, and you want to avoid that on carnivore. For cheese, stick to simple, hard cheeses like cheddar, Swiss, or provolone. Avoid processed cheese slices if you can, because they often have starches and fillers. Real cheese melts just as well and tastes way better. Lunch idea number 2 is rotisserie chicken, and this is hands down the easiest option on this list. Go to your grocery store, buy 1 or 2 rotisserie chickens depending on how many lunches you need. Bring them home and pull all the meat off the bones. You can eat the skin too if you want the extra fat and flavor, or you can remove it if you prefer leaner meat. Store the chicken meat in individual portions in your fridge, and that's it. You're done. This literally takes 10 minutes of prep time and gives you multiple lunches. Rotisserie chicken is great cold, so you don't need to worry about heating it up unless you want to. Just pack your portion in a container, grab a fork, and eat it straight from the container at your desk or in the break room. If you want to make it a little fancier, you can shred the chicken and mix it with some melted butter or tallow for extra fat and moisture. The fat makes it taste richer and helps you stay satisfied longer. You can also add different seasonings if you want variety throughout the week. One day have it plain, another day add some garlic powder, another day add some paprika. Simple changes in seasoning can make the same protein feel different enough to keep things interesting. The beauty of rotisserie chicken is that it's pre-cooked and usually well-seasoned already, so you're getting good flavor without any effort. It's also relatively inexpensive compared to other proteins, especially if you catch them on sale. Some stores discount their rotisserie chickens at the end of the day, so if you're flexible with your shopping time, you can get them really cheap. This is a great starter option if you're new to carnivore meal prep and feeling overwhelmed. Just buy the chicken, pull the meat off, portion it out, and you've successfully prepped carnivore lunches. Don't overcomplicate it. Lunch idea number 3 is steak bites or steak strips. And this one is for when you want to feel a little fancy at work. Get a good cut of steak, something like sirloin, ribeye, or New York strip. You don't need the most expensive cut for this because you're cutting it into smaller pieces and the preparation makes even cheaper cuts tender and delicious. Cut your steak into bite-sized pieces, maybe 1-inch cubes. Heat up a cast iron skillet or heavy pan until it's really hot. Add some butter or tallow and sear the steak bites in batches. You want a nice brown crust on the outside, but still medium rare to medium on the inside. Season your steak bites with salt and pepper, and if you want to get a little more creative, you can add garlic butter at the end. Just melt some butter in the pan after you've cooked all your steak. Add minced garlic or garlic powder. Toss your steak bites in that garlic butter and you've got restaurant-quality steak bites that cost a fraction of what you'd pay eating out. Let them cool, then portion them into containers for the week. These are delicious cold, and they're easy to eat at your desk with just a fork. The individual bites are already portioned, so you're not trying to cut a whole steak with a plastic knife in the office kitchen. The reason this lunch works so well is that steak is incredibly nutrient-dense and satisfying. You're getting high-quality protein, healthy fats if you chose a marbled cut, and a full range of B vitamins, iron, zinc, and other nutrients that your body needs to function optimally. Steak has this special quality where even a relatively small portion leaves you feeling completely satisfied. It's not like eating chicken, where you might need a pound to feel full. A half pound of steak with good fat content will keep most people satisfied for 6 to 8 hours. This is perfect for a work lunch because you're not going to be hungry again before dinner. Lunch idea number 4 is salmon or other fatty fish. And this is a great option if you want omega-3 fatty acids and a different flavor profile from red meat. Get some salmon fillets, either fresh or frozen. Season them with salt and bake them in the oven at 400 degrees for about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on thickness. You can also pan-sear salmon if you prefer, or use a different fatty fish like mackerel or sardines if you're feeling adventurous. The key is choosing fatty fish rather than lean fish because you want those omega-3s and you want the fat for energy. Salmon is one of those foods that a lot of people actually prefer cold, so it's ideal for a work lunch that you might not be able to heat up. Cold salmon has this clean, fresh taste that's really satisfying, and it pairs well with hard-boiled eggs if you want to make a more substantial meal. Just pack your salmon portion with a couple of hard-boiled eggs, and you've got a complete, nutrient-dense lunch. The combination of salmon and eggs gives you an incredible array of nutrients, including omega-3s, vitamin D, B vitamins, selenium, and high-quality protein. If you're worried about fish smell in the office, I hear you. Fish can be polarizing, and not everyone appreciates the smell when you're heating it up or even just opening your container. Here's my advice. Eat salmon cold so you're not heating it and making the smell spread throughout the office. Keep your container sealed until you're ready to eat. Maybe eat in your car or outside if the weather's nice and you're really concerned about it. Or just own it and eat your salmon because you're prioritizing your health, and the temporary smell of fish is not a legitimate reason to compromise your nutrition. Most people will get over it, and if they don't, they can eat their lunch somewhere else. Lunch idea number 5 is pulled pork. And this is fantastic if you want something that feels comforting and can be made in huge batches with minimal effort. Get a pork shoulder or pork butt. Season it generously with salt and put it in your slow cooker with a little bit of water or bone broth. Cook it on low for 8 to 10 hours until the meat is so tender it falls apart when you touch it. Once it's done, shred the meat with 2 forks, and you've got pulled pork that will last you for days. The beauty of pulled pork is that it's incredibly versatile and reheats beautifully. You can eat it plain. You can mix it with butter or lard for extra fat. Or you can add different seasonings to change up the flavor. Some people like to crisp up their pulled pork in a pan with butter to get some caramelized edges, and that adds a whole new texture and flavor dimension. Pulled pork is also very forgiving. Even if you overcook it slightly, it's still delicious because the fat and gelatin from the pork shoulder keep it moist. For work lunches, portion your pulled pork into containers and add a little bit of the cooking liquid to keep it moist. When you heat it up in the microwave, it will steam itself and taste fresh. This is one of the lunches where heating it up really does make a difference in how enjoyable it is. Cold pulled pork isn't bad, but warm pulled pork is amazing. The smell of pork cooking is also generally less offensive to coworkers than fish, so you probably won't get as many complaints about heating this one up. Pork is an underrated meat on carnivore. It's often less expensive than beef, but still provides excellent nutrition, including high-quality protein, B vitamins, and minerals. Pork fat is also delicious and very satiating, so don't trim all the fat off your pork shoulder. That fat is what makes pulled pork taste so good and what keeps you satisfied all afternoon. If you're worried about the quality of conventional pork, look for pasture-raised pork from local farms or better grocery stores. The flavor and fat quality are noticeably better, and you're supporting more ethical farming practices. Lunch idea number 6 is a carnivore charcuterie box, and this is perfect for when you don't want to cook or you need something you can throw together in 2 minutes. Get an assortment of high-quality deli meats like salami, prosciutto, roast beef, or turkey. Add some hard cheeses like aged cheddar, Gouda, or Parmesan. Throw in some hard-boiled eggs and maybe some beef jerky or pork rinds for crunch. Pack everything together in a container, and you've got a lunch that feels special and interesting, even though it required 0 cooking. The key with this lunch is quality. You're not cooking anything, so the ingredients themselves need to be good. Avoid deli meats with added sugars, starches, or preservatives as much as possible. Read labels and look for meats where the ingredients are just meat, salt, and maybe some spices. Some salami and prosciutto are aged and cured traditionally with no weird additives, and those are your best options. For cheese, choose aged hard cheeses because they're lower in lactose and usually better tolerated. Soft cheeses and fresh cheeses have more lactose, and some people find they cause digestive issues or stall their progress on carnivore. This lunch is great because it's easy to eat without utensils if necessary. You can eat salami and cheese with your hands while you're working if you need to multitask. It's also very portable and doesn't require any heating or special storage beyond keeping it cold. The variety of flavors and textures in a charcuterie-style lunch can be really satisfying, especially if you're someone who struggles with eating the same thing every day. You can change up which meats and cheeses you include each week to keep things interesting without actually having to change your meal prep routine. Lunch idea number 7 is lamb. And I'm including this because lamb is incredibly nutritious and delicious, but often overlooked on carnivore. Lamb is rich in protein, iron, zinc, and vitamin B12, and it has a distinct flavor that's different from beef or pork. If you've never tried lamb, this is your permission to experiment. Get some lamb chops, ground lamb, or a lamb shoulder roast. For lamb chops, season with salt and sear them in a hot pan with butter for just a few minutes per side. They're best when they're still pink in the middle. For ground lamb, make patties just like you would with beef, and cook them the same way. For a lamb roast, slow cook it like you would pulled pork until it's tender and falling apart. Lamb has this rich, slightly gamey flavor that some people absolutely love. If you're not used to it, start with ground lamb because it's milder than lamb chops. Mix the ground lamb with some beef if you want to ease into the flavor. Maybe half lamb and half beef for your burgers. Once you get used to the taste, you might find that you prefer lamb to beef sometimes because it's so flavorful and satisfying. The fat in lamb is also particularly good for you, rich in omega-3s if the lamb was grass-fed. And it has a different fatty acid profile compared to beef or pork. For work lunches, lamb works just like beef. You can pack lamb chops and eat them cold or reheated. Portion out ground lamb patties or shred lamb roast for a pulled lamb situation. Lamb pairs really well with bold seasonings if you want to jazz it up. Some people like lamb with rosemary. Others like it with cumin or coriander for a Middle Eastern vibe. Even just salt and pepper lets the natural flavor shine through. Because lamb is less common in typical American diets, eating it for lunch can feel a little exotic and special, which helps keep your carnivore diet feeling interesting rather than monotonous. Now let me give you some universal tips that apply to all of these lunch ideas to make your carnivore meal prep even easier and more sustainable. First, invest in good quality food storage containers. You want containers that seal tightly so they don't leak in your lunch bag, that are microwave safe if you plan to heat your food, and that are durable enough to last. Glass containers are great because they don't absorb smells or stains, but they're heavier to carry. BPA-free plastic containers are lighter and fine for most people. Have enough containers for at least 5 lunches so you can prep for the whole work week at once. Second, don't be afraid of fat. One of the biggest mistakes people make on carnivore is eating too lean, and then they're hungry again an hour after lunch. Fat is your friend on this diet. It provides energy, keeps you satisfied, and helps you absorb fat-soluble vitamins from your meat. If your meat is lean, add fat. Cook your chicken in butter. Top your steak with tallow. Mix your ground beef with bacon. Eat the skin on your salmon. The fat is what makes carnivore sustainable because it prevents constant hunger and cravings. If you're tracking macros, aim for at least equal grams of fat and protein, if not more fat than protein, depending on your goals and how you feel. Third, salt your food properly. Meat needs salt to taste good, and your body needs adequate sodium to function, especially when you're eating a low-carb diet like carnivore. When you cut out processed foods and carbohydrates, you lose a lot of water and sodium, and you need to replace that sodium intentionally. Don't be shy with the salt shaker. Season your meat generously before cooking, and if your food tastes bland, add more salt. You'll know you've salted enough when your food tastes delicious and satisfying. If you're experiencing headaches, fatigue, or muscle cramps on carnivore, it's often because you're not getting enough sodium. Fourth, prep your proteins simply and add variety through different cuts and animals rather than complicated recipes. You don't need a different elaborate recipe for every meal. Cook your meat with salt, maybe some butter or garlic, and focus on quality ingredients rather than complex preparations. The variety comes from eating beef one day, chicken the next, salmon the next, pork after that. Each animal provides different nutrients and flavors, so rotating through different proteins throughout the week gives you both nutritional diversity and taste variety without requiring complicated cooking. Fifth, consider adding bone broth to your lunch routine. Bone broth is technically carnivore since it's just simmered animal bones and connective tissue. Pack a thermos of bone broth to sip with your lunch or during the afternoon. It's hydrating, provides gelatin and collagen, which are great for your joints and gut, and can help you feel even more satisfied after your meal. Some people use bone broth as a way to add more sodium and minerals without having to eat more food. If you're making your own bone broth, which I highly recommend, you can control the flavor and salt content to make it exactly how you like it. Sixth, plan for social situations and don't let them derail you. There will be days when your coworkers want to go out for lunch or there's a catered meeting. You can absolutely stick to carnivore in these situations. At most restaurants, you can order a steak, burger without the bun, salmon, or roasted chicken. Ask them to cook your meat in butter instead of seed oils if possible. Skip the sides or ask them to double your protein instead. For catered meetings, eat the meat portions and ignore the rest. Bring your packed lunch to eat later if the catered food isn't suitable. The point is, you can navigate these situations without compromising your diet or feeling deprived. Seventh, give yourself permission to keep it simple and repeat meals. You don't need 7 different lunches every week. If you love burger patties with bacon and cheese, eat that every single day. If rotisserie chicken is your jam, eat it 5 days straight. Your body doesn't care about variety the way your brain thinks it should. Many successful long-term carnivores eat the same few meals on rotation for months or even years because they found what works and they don't want to overthink it. Simplicity is sustainable. Complicated meal plans that require constant variety and prep are exhausting and usually lead to burnout. Let me address some common concerns and questions that come up with carnivore work lunches. One question I get all the time is whether you should eat organ meats at work. Organ meats like liver, heart, and kidney are incredibly nutrient-dense, and many carnivore advocates recommend eating them regularly. However, I understand that eating liver at your desk might not be appealing or practical. My recommendation is to incorporate organ meats at home, where you have more control over preparation and eating environment. You can eat liver for breakfast or dinner, and then stick to muscle meats for your work lunch. If you really want to get organ nutrition throughout the day, consider freeze-dried organ supplements that you can take like vitamins. They provide the nutrients without the taste or texture issues. Another common question is about eating raw meat at work. Some hardcore carnivores eat raw meat regularly, arguing that it preserves enzymes and certain nutrients that are destroyed by cooking. While there may be some truth to that, eating raw meat at work is probably not the move for most people. Raw meat has food safety concerns that are amplified when you're transporting it and storing it at room temperature or in a questionable office fridge. It's also going to draw attention and potentially make your coworkers uncomfortable. Save the raw meat experiments for home, where you have complete control over food safety and don't have to deal with other people's reactions. People also ask about eating carnivore when you have physically demanding work, like construction, nursing, or warehouse work. The good news is that carnivore is actually excellent fuel for physical labor. The stable energy from fat and protein keeps you going for hours without crashes. However, you might need to eat more at lunch compared to someone with a desk job because you're burning more calories. Don't try to restrict portions if you're doing heavy physical work. Eat until you're satisfied, and consider packing extra meat or having a second smaller meal mid-afternoon if you need it. Your body will tell you what it needs if you listen to hunger and fullness cues rather than trying to stick to arbitrary portion sizes. What about eating carnivore when you work night shifts or irregular hours? The same principles apply, but you'll adjust the timing. Your lunch might be at 2 in the morning. That's fine. Pack your meat, keep it cold or heat it up when you're ready to eat, and fuel your body the same way you would during day shift. Carnivore can actually be helpful for night shift workers because the stable energy helps you stay alert during odd hours when your circadian rhythm is fighting against you. The worst thing you can do on night shift is eat a carb-heavy meal, because the blood sugar crash, combined with being awake at an unnatural hour, is brutal. Stick with meat and fat, and you'll have much more stable energy. Let's talk about the social and psychological aspects of eating carnivore at work, because this is real, and it affects whether people can sustain this diet long-term. Eating differently from everyone around you can feel isolating or awkward. You might get questions, comments, or even judgment from coworkers who don't understand why you're eating only meat. Some people are genuinely curious and want to know more. Others might be defensive because your food choices make them question their own. And some people just like to give unsolicited opinions about everything. Here's how I recommend handling it. If someone asks genuine questions with curiosity, share what you're comfortable sharing. You might say something like, "I'm trying a carnivore diet, and it's been really helping my energy and health." Keep it simple, and don't feel like you need to justify or defend your choices. If someone is judgmental or makes negative comments, you can politely shut it down. You might say something like, "This is working really well for me, but I respect that everyone needs to find what works for their body." Then, change the subject. You're not obligated to educate people who aren't actually interested in learning. The truth is, most people will get over it quickly. They might comment the first time they see you eating a plain steak for lunch, but by the third time, it's just what you do, and they move on. People are generally less interested in your lunch than you think they are. They're mostly focused on their own food and their own lives. If you act confident and unapologetic about your food choices, most people will just accept it and move on. The ones who don't are dealing with their own issues that have nothing to do with you. I also want to acknowledge the financial aspect of eating carnivore at work, because meat can be expensive, and that's a legitimate concern. If you're on a tight budget, focus on the less expensive cuts and proteins. Ground beef is usually much cheaper than steak. Chicken thighs are cheaper than chicken breasts, and actually better for carnivore because they have more fat. Pork shoulder is very affordable and makes tons of pulled pork. Eggs are incredibly cheap and nutrient-dense. Canned fish like sardines and mackerel are affordable sources of fatty fish. You don't need to eat ribeye steak every day to succeed on carnivore. Buy in bulk when things are on sale. If ground beef is on sale, buy 10 pounds and freeze what you won't use this week. If whole chickens are cheap, buy several and roast them all at once. Costco or Sam's Club memberships can pay for themselves if you're buying large quantities of meat regularly. Consider splitting bulk purchases with a friend or family member who also eats carnivore. Some people even go in on buying a quarter or half cow directly from a farmer, which can be very cost-effective if you have freezer space. Another budget tip is to use fattier cuts of less expensive meat, rather than lean cuts of expensive meat. An 80-20 ground beef burger will keep you satisfied much longer than a lean chicken breast. And the ground beef is usually cheaper per pound. The fat is where a lot of the satiety and energy come from. So fattier, cheaper cuts often provide better value than lean, expensive cuts. Don't fall into the trap of thinking you need grass-fed, organic everything to do carnivore right. Conventional meat is still miles better than processed carbohydrates and seed oils. Eat the best quality you can afford without stressing about perfection. Let me give you a sample week of carnivore work lunches using the 7 ideas I've shared so you can see how this might look in practice. Monday, you have burger patties with bacon and cheese that you prepped on Sunday. Tuesday, you eat rotisserie chicken with butter. Wednesday, you have steak bites with garlic butter. Thursday, you pack a carnivore charcuterie box because you didn't have time to cook. Friday, you eat salmon with hard-boiled eggs. You've now hit 5 different proteins with 5 very different flavor profiles, and your meal prep time was maybe 2 hours total on Sunday. That's incredibly efficient. The next week, you might rotate in pulled pork and lamb to replace 2 of the previous week's options. Or maybe you love the steak bites so much you want them twice this week. The point is, you have options and flexibility while still keeping things simple and sustainable. You're not following some rigid meal plan that someone else created. You're choosing from a rotation of foods you enjoy, that fit your schedule and budget, and that keep you feeling great. That's what sustainable eating looks like. As you get more comfortable with carnivore meal prep, you'll develop your own systems and favorite combinations. Maybe you discover that you love eating cold steak, and it becomes your go-to quick lunch. Maybe you become a bone broth enthusiast and start experimenting with different animals and cooking times. Maybe you find a local butcher who has amazing prices on lamb, and it becomes your weekly staple. The beauty of carnivore is that once you understand the basic framework, you have a lot of room to personalize it based on your preferences, budget, and lifestyle. I want to acknowledge that switching to carnivore lunches might feel weird or challenging at first, especially if you've been eating sandwiches or leftovers from mixed meals for years. You're breaking decades of conditioning about what lunch should look like. That's actually a good thing, but it can feel uncomfortable initially. Give yourself grace during the transition period. It's okay if your first few meal prep sessions don't go perfectly. It's okay if you end up eating plain ground beef out of a container while your coworkers eat their fancy salads. You're learning a new skill and breaking old patterns. That takes time. But I promise you, it gets easier. After a few weeks of meal prepping carnivore lunches, it becomes second nature. You'll develop efficient systems. You'll know exactly which containers to use and how much meat to pack. You'll have your go-to recipes that you can make in your sleep. And most importantly, you'll be experiencing the benefits of stable energy, reduced hunger, better focus, and improved health that make all of this effort worthwhile. Your coworkers will be dragging through their afternoon slumps while you're productive and energized. They'll be snacking constantly while you're completely satisfied from your lunch. The results speak for themselves. If you're interested in learning more about the carnivore diet and what happens in your body when you eat only animal products, I did a comprehensive video recently about the first 30 days on carnivore and all the changes you can expect. It covers the adaptation period, common side effects, and how to optimize your results. That video pairs really well with this one, and you can find it linked in the description below or in the cards at the end of this video. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.